In this video, I want to talk about 7 specific instances where the Russians are just absolutely barbaric. And I know that if you lean toward a pro-Russian position, you think, no, Ukraine is just this corrupt morass. And the Russians, that's traditional values and Christendom and fighting back against the decadent West. I'll show you what the Russians are actually up to here. And let's start with this. 7 of them. Just give me one video to show this. So there's a UN Security Council meeting that met as an emergency session on Friday afternoon following overnight strikes on Thursday by Russia on Ukrainian cities. These were devastating strikes against civilian targets, purely civilian targets. Lavrov just said last week, no, we don't strike civilians. It's laughable. We know that they strike civilians. They do it all the time. And then they have the Security Council meeting. And in this, we see this. To avoid seeing the crimes of our country, a diplomat from the Russian Federation hid her eyes in her phone while the speech was about. So this is what you see on the title, on the thumbnail. She's just reading her phone while the Prime Minister, Yulia Severenko, is explaining what's going on. Just let's listen to this.
Yesterday, Russia again responded brutally to our attempts to engage them in a civilized dialogue. In the language of international
law. There she is on her phone. Look at that. While she's talking about children being killed.
Peace and respect for human life. Russia continues to choose killing over ending the war. We should take this into account in our efforts aimed at peaceful resolution and establishment of reliable security guarantees. These guarantees shall protect both Ukrainian sovereignty and the lives of Ukrainian people, especially children. Our people must feel safe already today. That's why ceasefire remains an essential prerequisite for successful future negotiation.
Okay, so I hear that the Russians will say things like the Ukrainians, they don't want a ceasefire. This is what Lavrov is trying to communicate, and I've heard it in social media. It's been now, look at this, 173 days since Zelensky agreed to a ceasefire, and then they talk and hash out whatever they need to do. Russia has done nothing. Russia says the conditions aren't right to do this because they're stalling for time. And by the way, while she's talking about 23 people, civilians that were killed because of Russian attacks on civilians just the other day. Okay, and it happens all the time. Okay, here, I'm going to read a fuller text of what she had to say. The youngest victim in Russia's latest attack in Kyiv never lived to see her 3rd birthday. She was born in October of 2022 under the thunderous roar of Russian shelling and passed away in August 2025 to the same sound when a Russian missile targeted her family's home. A short and precious life like so many others that became a victim of a genocidal regime that the civilized world refuses to confront. Russia's crimes against children are not a wartime accident, but a deliberate policy of I don't pronounce this for YouTube, but yeah, that's what's going on. They are killed from afar by missiles and drones, and those who survive on occupied territories are separated from their families, brainwashed, stripped of their Ukrainian identity. Thousands are injured, missing, or abducted. More than 1.6 million Ukrainian children today are living under Russian control, becoming hostages to the savagery of an empire. And I'll show you what that looks like when they're under Russian control in Donbas. Today, I spoke about the issue at the United Nations Security Council, making it clear that Russia has chosen as a political tool, targeting civilians and children to sow fear and break resistance. Any negotiations must begin with a ceasefire guaranteed by reliable security commitments and by returning all abducted Ukrainian children to their families and homeland. Look, if you still believe that the Russians are the good guys, who abducted children? Like, just ask yourself that. Who has control of abducted children? It's the Russians. On the battlefield, our defenders are paying with their blood for what the Security Council must ensure with its votes, ending the aggression and protecting the principles on which the United Nations was founded. I call on the international community to act beyond words, to refuse to provide funding means for Russia's war, to impose real consequences for these crimes. So that's more of what she had to say. Now, I can't even show this picture at the UN Security Council as Prime Minister Yulia Severenko showed the body of a child killed in a Russian strike. The Russian representative was staring into her phone. Stark reminder for Moscow, human life means nothing. Cynicism is their policy. Okay, so this is commentary. Human life means nothing. Well, it means a lot less than it does to Ukrainians, it appears. Here are residents of the occupied Donbas, the Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine. They've appealed to Putin over critically severe water crisis in the region. Of course, Putin didn't come to those areas to make the people's lives better. Here's the quote. The inaction of DPR authorities in addressing the water supply crisis, their betrayal of Russia's and Donbas residents' interests, and in the possible corruption of local officials are undermining the very idea of the Russian world for which thousands of people have given their lives. This is not just negligence, it's betrayal. Betrayal of those who, since 2014, believed in Russia, who voted for reunification, who endured shelling but did not surrender and did not abandon the territory of the Donbas. This is what they're talking about here. These people are like struggling because there's no water because they blew up the water, like the mines and things along those lines. The mine drainage got into the water supply, and so they now have no water, and they're not doing anything to fix it. But why would they do things to fix it when they don't really value the Ukrainians that are living there? Here's another example. A Russian telling an Uzbek that he's a slave of the Russians. That's just the way that Russians see others that are not Russian, right? Whether they're Ukrainian, Uzbek, or otherwise. Okay, now we see this, another crime. This is an aerial reconnaissance by Ukrainians. First Azov Corps documented another Russian war crime on August 28th in the Donetsk region. Footage shows a soldier of Russia's 95th Separate Rifle Regiment shooting an unarmed elderly civilian outside his home in Pokrovsk. The victim was clearly in civilian clothing and unarmed. Here is the soldier. Here is the civilian. And if I played the video, you'd see the shot and you'd see the civilian fall over. That's what Russia is bringing to Ukraine. Russia brings the first criminal charges and imprisonment for studying the Bible, according to occupy Donbas. Yeah, for studying the Bible. What happened here? Russia expands its brutal persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses to the areas of Ukraine that they've managed to occupy. Yesterday in Sevastopol, Crimea, Russian police raid the family home of Jehovah's Witnesses in a style akin to counter-T operations. The religion is now officially outlawed with 7-year prison terms for offenders. Look, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, but as someone who's religious myself, I want you to be able to practice your religion your way before God, just like I want to have the freedom to do it myself. This is what Russia is bringing. And if you think that Russia is a bastion of some kind of traditional values, I've got a bridge to sell you. This is a permanent veto-wielding UN Security Council member, that's Russia, openly glorifying yet another war crime, proudly violating the Geneva Convention. Russia celebrates their atrocities because they do not believe the world will ever stop them. So what are we talking about here? The waltz of POWs, prisoners of war, performed by two, and this is a rude word to describe Ukrainians in Russian. Not everyone will understand this dance cannot end without lethal consequences. Ha 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 ha, the laughing emoji. The insider kept the original spelling, punctuation, and formatting. Okay, so what is this? You're looking at two prisoners of war, Ukrainian prisoners of war, one of them forced to hold a grenade with the pin removed while they're duct taped there. When they're tired enough, that could fall out and that's the end of them. That is what the Russian world is bringing there. Russia also just confirmed T, that is a different kind of T, there's two types here, is a state policy through withdrawal from vital European convention. They are no longer involved in the conventions that outlaw doing that to prisoners. That's where Russia is. Russian T's now dropped a shell on a civilian who was walking his dog. This was about a week ago. I saw this and I was like, I can't even play it. Okay, to underline the sheer cynicism of these monsters, they set harrowing footage to cheerful music. So if I rewind this video, what you'll see is a guy just walking his dog. You'll see something blow up, and that's what's blown up over here. And then I can play it from this point forward because you see the guy trying to get out of there with his dog, and his dog is like limping, like trying not to, like the dog's like, what happened? Right? And the guy's trying to get out of there quickly with his dog. That's part of the human safari in Kherson. That's what happens regularly. Now, I want you to see these pictures. These are people that were killed on, I guess it was Thursday's attacks, whatever it was, Wednesday, Thursday, in just sleeping in their homes. That was their crime. And it's disproportionately women and children. And that's what Russia is bringing to Ukraine. I want to show you one last thing. This is Yulia Servanenko. This is her official account here. This is her, and she's holding this poster here of some of these victims. And then we see this. This is cynicism beyond belief. What's going on? Oh, look at that. Look at, I changed to men. What's going on? Well, in the second one, this is someone saying shocked. This is lies. Shocked, Prime Minister of Ukraine, Yulia Servanenko, apparently by mistake presented at the UN Security Council photographs of civilian men killed by bandits from Ukrainian military structure, Zelensky's regime. Okay, but you know what? If you just look at the picture, look how the picture doesn't change from the official account. Look at like where the ear is here, just over the, like, it's not two different pictures. Something happened, and in the official account, the official presentation, they're women, and they're trying to lie and make it look like she's talking about something else, because the propaganda war is also powerful. Okay, I just wanted to show you this so that you could see, like, there are so many just barbaric, evil acts here, and just one on top of another on top of another. And if you believe that the Russians are the good guys, tell me why in the comments below, because I'm happy to take up any of those challenges. All right, thank you for your time, my friends. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.